Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. The Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast that's starting to get just a little bit too heavy for us. I'm not quite sure our strength is going to hold out to the end. I'm Pete.
I am Tom Taylor.
I'm Gerald Christopher St. Tarcisius, patron of First Communicants and altar servers. He was carrying the Eucharist to some prisoners and was beaten to death on the Appian Way.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Now look, it can't all be fun and games.
No.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sounds
some
just
of
like
these
human
saints
history.
gotta earn it. They gotta earn it the hard way. Yeah. Actually, as I say every time about now, man, a lot of them died gruesome deaths. There's a lot of martyrs in those annals. You know.
Speaking of
It's tough.
gruesome and Appian Way, when I was a kid, a lot of the food we ate came out of boxes, and I remember like when we were really doing well, we would eat the Chef Boyardee build your own pizzas at home.
Ooh.
But when things were not going as well, there were these Appian Way pizza mixes that would come out of a box, and I remember they were not good.
Oh, no.
Wow.
So it's always a brutal death on the
They
Appian
say
Way.
like
You
you know
had
the
to say Appian Way,
Appian.
Jerry.
Yeah. They say the Appian Way was one of the reasons that Christianity spread as rapidly as it did.
Yeah.
Isn't that true? Yeah, because the roads were so great.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Porter?
Porter. Yeah, thank you, Tommy. You always got my back there, Tommy. I appreciate
here
that
for
whole
you, Jerry.
salamander chameleon thing. Boy, did I blow that.
But with
And
grace.
I'm Neil Agatha of Sicily, patron saint of baked goods. Brian.
Oh, beautiful.
Hey.
Wow.
and I
Very
believe
well done.
I believe a modern interpretation would include pizza,
Okay.
Yeah.
but
Nice.
obviously without pineapple on it.
Oh, so like Pete as a
yes.
kid, like if he's having like, oh, this Appian Way pizza stuff is just garbage, like would he then pray to that saint and like maybe
Saint
the Chef
Agatha.
Boyardee stuff would show up next time or something?
Well, I wasn't sure if it was the person eating the pizza or the baked good themselves. So
Oh, okay.
if you are a baked good, maybe you've got some metaphysical support right there. I don't know.
Like if you're the Pillsbury Doughboy or something, he would pray to you.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Well, someone just tickled my belly button.
Yeah.
So, Jerry, did you get
starve.
like the pop-up book of patron saints for Christmas or something?
I did, actually, you know
You
what?
got the Lego set.
What's interesting about
Advent
Saint
calendar.
Tarcisius is, being a patron of First Communicants, I actually did get the lives of the saints for my First Communion, and I poured over it. Yeah, and I poured over it religiously.
Get it?
So yes.
This also raises a question for me, Neil. Does the fact that you are Saint Agatha of baked goods mean that you also have an issue with Marcus, formerly being Neil Christopher Marcus Brown?
No, I don't actually have an issue with Marcus. I mean, you know, would have been nice if they'd have kept him a little more kind of the respectable Raiders character. But I genuinely don't have a problem with the gags as you guys are kind of pointing out.
Oh, thank God.
That this movie is laden with. But yeah, because I just think this is just the way that they did this movie, and you know, they're just different.
Yeah.
All three are different movies.
Yeah.
And the filmmakers, to me, went about them specifically differently. I mean, it's stark when it comes to Temple of Doom, right? I mean, it's night and day from Raiders, and I think this one is too. And you know, it's you know, you guys have said it's kind of getting back towards the Raiders' direction, but I think it's intentionally not going all the way there. And they just wanted to set out to make the Saturday matinee movie for the family, and this is what they did. So, you know, a bit of bumbling Marcus is fine. You know, as English bumble sometimes. And it's fine.
That was very
It's
nicely
always
put.
charming.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's nice to start a podcast without having a random question thrown at
Oh,
me. But,
right, I forgot about that.
But then there it was. So thanks. Pete. Now I feel like the podcast really started.
Excellent. Well, today we're going to be talking about minute 110. Minute 110 begins with Indy crawling into the Grail Temple, and it ends with a very old man talking about swearing. And I kind of picture Jerry ending up like this one day.
One day.
One day.
Well, he's not
2 years
he's
old.
He's kind of medium old now. He's not very old yet. Yeah. But
Well,
this
thank you,
talking
Pete.
about swearing is still going to be there.
I appreciate that. I'm wondering, at the end of this bridge, is there a little courtesy spittoon of sand?
Yeah. Take a sand, leave a sand.
Yeah, exactly. You remember where you put the bridge?
Yeah, is he tossing that there
I mean-
for himself, or is he intentionally letting Elsa and Donovan follow him? That's always
Yeah,
weirded
or
me
does
out
he
a
think they're
little
going to
bit.
bring his dad?
Oh,
Although Marcus told
weird.
him to come
Oh,
quickly.
yeah.
Marcus said come quickly. So
That's
I
maybe,
think
true.
Indy would get that he couldn't be moved or anything,
yeah, why wouldn't he do
I-
this?
because he knows the bridge is there.
Yeah.
Although it might be really freaky, like, to do that again, to be like, okay, there's a bridge here, right?
Although the
I
other
don't
way,
know.
You know
there's
what's
no way it would match
fascinating
up
is-
both ways, because the other way would have different
can't be,
rocks.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Well, you know what's interesting? What if Indy? We're jumping ahead a pinch, but I love this. You guys are gonna love it. It's brilliant.
Awesome.
What if Indy had the chalice, and he didn't throw the sand across, the little rocks across to highlight the bridge, and he used it to, bribe or as a negotiating tool with Donovan, because Donovan can't get into that room right now.
But how do you negotiate if you like? What's he going to negotiate for? Because Donovan,
I don't-
no
I
matter what
don't
he does,
know,
Donovan's
but-
still on the other side of the chasm. Like Indy
It's
can't
true,
get
but-
to the other side without giving away that there's a bridge.
But Indy is the only person who can cross this
Yeah,
right now.
that's true.
And he has the Grail. I mean, if he knows that's the Grail Room or that's the final challenge chapter, whatever. So it's interesting. The movie could have gone a different way, setting up like a standoff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, it wasn't
like a
that
Raiders
brilliant.
style standoff. You throw me the whip, I'll throw you the Grail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Throw me my dad,
yeah.
I'll throw you the grill.
Throw me my dad.
because he can't. I don't think Donovan knows anything about this. Now his dad does, because they're telepathically connected or spiritually. There's a Yahweh bridge between them, whatever. But Donovan would just come there, and who knows what would happen. Same with Elsa.
Yeah.
Although I think this does answer your question, Jerry, of whether the bridge is there all the time or not. Like if Donovan shows up later, I'm assuming it means the bridge is always there. Because Neil
also made
Jerry
out
had
of
the idea
stone.
that. What's that? Yeah, it's also made out of stone. Jerry
Well,
had
listen,
the
I'm
idea
not-
that last minute, Neil, that the bridge
Yeah.
showed up and disappeared periodically, depending on how much faith you had.
Like a mystical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Neil? See, I don't think it's. I'm not saying it's cool that Donovan and Elsa show up or follow at all.
No, I think it's just it's a physical thing in my mind. I mean, I think obviously when the camera kind of pans round and you see that it's an optical illusion, and it's a clever one. That in my mind, it's just always there. I mean, the night surely can come in and out of this place, and so he has. What is he using? Like Yahweh's breath to cross the chasm? I think the thing is there for him, right? That's
Yeah.
and he's obviously mastered the art of not having to use sound.
Right.
Otherwise, he's going to give it away every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
He's got real faith that the stone bridge is actually still there. It didn't just magically disappear when he turned his back.
I don't think that guy ever leaves at all.
I have
don't
always
think he
thought that
moved
too,
from
but
that
the more we
position.
talk about
Yeah.
like, dusting off the bridge and replacing the tiles and moving the decapitated bodies, like somebody's got to be doing that.
Yeah.
As silly
Yeah.
as it sounds, I'm wondering if he does just kind of keep tidy up and stuff.
He can't just exist in this room. I mean, there's got to be
Yeah,
more
like
to
he's
it than
got.
that, right?
Where does he get? Where does
Has
he
he got
get
quarters?
food? Where does he get fresh water? Well, I mean, there could be water that trickles in, but where's he going to get fresh food?
Exactly.
Well, I think it's like I think there's a loaves and fishes thing.
Oh,
Just
maybe.
every day there's like a bread basket of loaves and fishes. Duh, and manna and honey.
No,
Did you guys ever go to Sunday school?
Well,
I think there's a restaurant in Jordan with like a 900-year recurring lunch order. Just every day.
I was like, oh, I got to deliver again.
why we're airdropping this crate of food into the Crescent Moon.
It's really hard. I
Yeah,
have to
leave it
fake
by the
meal
third
every
pillar.
time. Before we get to the night, though, Indy has to crawl that final 10 feet. Now,
Yeah.
is that just because people in the Middle Ages were just that small?
Yeah, but if you come in,
button. Oh, it's this way.
yeah, but if you come in and you're a knight and you're wearing all of your knightly regalia,
Oh,
that's gonna be tough.
yeah. It would
Like if
suck.
you're wearing a suit
why,
of armor.
why did they make
the final
why
test.
did they make
Yeah.
Indy have to just crawl for 7 feet?
Maybe they're forcing penitence again.
It's a deference
They're
thing.
they're forcing your body into a kneeling pose.
Or maybe if they left it, if they had a larger opening, you could see the flames flickering from the other side of the.
Oh, interesting.
It might
Oh,
cast
wow.
shadows on the bridge.
Could you
Well, just
pick
build
out
it
the
better.
true Grail and pass it down to me? Just roll it down
Yeah.
the stone bridge. It'll feel
Put
like
a left-hand turn in there.
That's true. Maybe they did.
I mean, it's interesting. He has to crawl, but just for like 7 feet.
Yeah.
I like he crawls in here and we see the knight there, and they almost immediately cut to the shot, where you're sort of facing the knight and Indy's behind him, and it's a very cool looking Indiana Jones moment because like nothing's happening. It's literally just him like being like just regarding this ancient supernatural knight. And it's like, and he's a little bit like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what have I stumbled into? Like, what exactly is going on here?
Before his natural instincts of like, what can I take or break or steal? Kick in.
Does he count as an artifact? Can I break that guy? Or do I just steal that guy? What rules apply here?
Well,
I
actually,
burn
speaking
this
of
room down. It's all stone.
speaking of breaking that guy, when you first watched this, and you think when Indy walked in, did you think that was a real guy, or did you think that was a statue of a guy?
Oh, that's a good
You know
question.
what I thought? The first thing I thought is, God, that guy's living the night. The knight is living the life that Pete Mummert wants to live. He's just so exhausted.
Nothing but plates and grails as far as the eye can see.
He doesn't want to have to. Yeah, he doesn't exactly. He doesn't want to have to deal with anybody. There's no sound. Nobody can get to him.
The ultimate man cave.
Exactly. That's the first thing I thought of. So, I'll say this. You know what I love is at least the knight is wearing gloves when handling the relics.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good point.
that's true.
Come on now.
I have a similar question. Does he really have to wear the chainmail the whole time?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Doesn't he have fatigues
Yeah.
or something? Or does
Although if his whole deal is that he's waiting for someone to come and challenge him, maybe he needs to be ready at all times. For
Well,
the
that's why I was
700
wondering, does he
years?
know? I think he might know that Indy's in the, like the people are getting close, and that's why he's got it on. Like he's
Oh,
prepared
you
himself.
think
Yeah,
Snake alarm went off.
yeah.
Yeah.
bloody hell, someone's coming after all these years?
Got to put my pants on.
Gotta dust off the old chainmail headpiece.
Yeah. Because if he wears that every
I-
day, that chainmail would just have to reek. Like that would just be.
Oh.
Yeah.
But in the script, it was more than chainmail. When you come in the script, it says we can't see the Grail Knight's face. The visor of his helmet is down, and I think he's wearing a full suit of armor when they originally wrote this. And that would really be an interesting.
That'd
that
be
would have been
tough.
cool.
Yeah.
See, I just think the knight is in a state of torpor here. I don't think he moves. I don't think he has to eat or anything. I mean, I think he just sits exactly right there. And I wondered how many times has he read that page?
He's like a character in a
last
video game.
700
Like you have to pass the certain point for him to activate.
Exactly.
Can we just make a note for Chris DeGuardia as well? Torpor, Chris.
Yeah.
Torpor.
Minute 110.
Minute 110.
I have to say though, this seems like a pretty hellish existence.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
really,
care how
Pete?
holy
Come
you are.
on.
This has got to be
It's gonna be
tough.
hot in there.
hard on
Yeah.
the knees for anything. Yeah.
This is your dream come true.
Not my dream.
Comfy
You know
chair, at
what's
least.
really, really weird is that in, previous Indiana Jones movies, we always have ancient artifacts and relics and idols, and here we have an actual ancient person.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nuts. It isn't a radio for talking to God. This is
Yeah.
a 1,000-year-old guy who you can talk to.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I have
think
a
about
really
like
good-
if you're
Oh, no,
a
go
real
ahead.
archaeologist or a real historian, this is the single biggest find in history. Like you actually have a direct person you
Yeah.
could ask any question you want to about the Crusades or the Middle
Yeah.
Ages.
Grail
and he can
Schmail.
tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have like two excellent questions actually, and they're sort of the same thing.
Wouldn't that make it one excellent question?
Well, I don't know because it is kind of two. I mean,
Combine them into like a
you'll see.
sensational
This is
question.
such a good question that when you hear this question, you'll understand this very boring buildup I'm giving to it. Why is the knight old?
Yeah.
And the reason is two questions.
Yeah.
Why is he old in the context of the movie? Like, why did he age even though he's supposedly, he drank from the... Well, actually, now that I say it, I don't know if he did. He must have done something because he's been alive for 700 years, but he's old and weak. But then also, why did they write him that way for the movie?
Yeah, I don't know
Like, why
they
is
ma-
Indy not
yeah.
faced with like a virile, powerful knight ready to take on any challengers?
But see, I think the fact that he is old, like I'm not sure why they wrote him this way, but I think the fact that he is old is proof that he leaves the temple quite a bit. Because I'm assuming the only time he can age is when he leaves. Like he goes to pick up some, he gets
Lunch.
the dry cleaning, or he goes to get some lunch or whatever. And when he
like
comes
Carrie in
back, he's a
Legion.
little bit older. What's that?
If you watch the show Legion, there's a character somewhat like that and a similar kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Look it up.
Dude, look, I'm calling bullwhip on the knight's fruitless attack swinging the sword. It's
Yeah.
stupid, and it's irreverent, and it's once
gag.
again
It's a gag.
it completely shatters the ominous and even triumphant mood
Yeah.
that we just had. It's like, no. If you're the Grail Knight who's guarding the cup of Christ and you have everlasting life, you don't slip a disc brandishing your sword.
And you don't have flutes going boop, 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 boop.
Yeah,
And this note that just says,
exactly.
"Thanks for the dignity, John Williams."
So
Exactly.
my note
It's
here
just
just says,
stupid.
I wonder how much Tom and Jerry will hate the sword being too heavy for him. They will both be seeing Fire Engine Red.
Yep. It's not even fire engine.
Well-
It's just like sad orange. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Come on.
You had a
And
really neat
here's-
thing going
here's-
for a second.
Here's what it is. You nailed it. The previous minute was so well done with Harrison Ford acting. I just said it was the scariest part of the movie for me. They do it so well. It's a leap of faith. It completely mirrors Christianity and the keystone of the Christian faith. It's so well done. And then they have the knight, and you're like, oh, his back hurts. It's too heavy. My strength has left me. What are we? This is stupid.
Yeah.
I want to say, look, you either have everlasting life, or you're mortal. None of this half-assed
yeah, that's
everlasting
weird.
life
Hold
crap.
on. I disagree 100% as usual. But I love the sword gag. I think it's awesome because he gets off a pretty good first swing, and it's hilarious because he puts it over his head and he just the way he falls over backwards and the expression on his face is I laugh every time I see it. But the other thing is we might
Speaking
be
of
misunderstanding
disagreeing
this,
completely, but okay.
this Grail business because it says you'll live forever. It doesn't say you won't grow old.
Well, that
But
blows.
then what's the point of having this guy guard the cup of Christ?
Well,
Yeah,
he
what's going to
said he
happen
was-
in
he
like
said he's
900
gonna-
years if somebody shows up?
Yes.
He decided he's the guard of Christ, the cup of Christ. That's not necessarily the cup of Christ that's told him to do that. This guy's got delusions of grandeur. He's like,
That's a
hey,
good
I'm
point.
going to be the guard. I'm taking over here. And he built all this stuff, and he's kind of created this whole little world in his own mind. But I don't think that's necessarily anything but his own
But okay,
hubris.
if we're gonna go with that route, then where is he shaving? Why isn't his beard like 800
Yeah.
years old?
Well, you can
I don't-
he can
I
shave.
just-
He can.
He's got a knife. He's got a
Yeah.
sword.
With what? With medieval clippers?
Yeah.
He's got a
I mean,
sword.
yeah.
Maybe
He's obviously
he
got.
invented his own razor.
Yeah, I mean, if the
Yeah,
guy
like
can,
700 years
Yeah.
on his own. Who knows what he's invented over that?
yeah,
Used
he's
to be
built all
dozens
those
more Grails
gears
there
and-
than
I mean, the whole
used them for
point
parts.
is, he says he's sworn allegiance and to protect it, and someone, the next guy needs to defeat him in single combat.
and
the
that's
guy-
what a knight from the Crusades would say. It's not necessarily something that someone from the 2nd or 1st century of the Common Era would say. That's something that I think he made up.
And God sent his replacement. Unfortunately, it was Indiana Jones, and he wasn't interested.
Well, I can accept
guess
even though I do not get it. I don't get why he's old. I don't get why he's old. I don't get, but I can live with that. Maybe it is because he leaves sometimes. Maybe it is just because,
Well, it never says
the
he was
Grail's
old.
not
It just
as
says
powerful as
he
we
won't
say it
die.
is. I don't know, but to have him fall down is just mean. It's like it's
it's
mean to the own movie. It's like he could
Yeah.
he could take a swing and then just be like, you know what? I'm 700 years old, and I'm feeling it. You vanquished me. Here's
What
my
happened
sword.
to you guys as kids? Something
No,
happened
this-
to you guys. It
Pete,
stole your
I don't
joy
know,
for
come
life.
on.
And your God,
He
it's
falls
so
down and it goes
It's
boop, 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 boop,
absolutely
boop.
hilarious.
It's like
when he
Gilligan
picks
getting
it
a
up
bird
and
gun.
falls backwards. It's absolutely.
But
Look at his
it
face.
ruins the seriousness
Yeah.
of the previous scene. It takes me out of the movie. And the other thing, Pete, it's not that it. I agree with you. It is really funny and it's really well done.
I disagree with
If
that.
I'm watching, if I'm watching Monty Python.
Or I Love Lucy. Yeah.
Or it is funny and watching him go, and it is funny. He's an old knight. But they're expecting me to take this seriously.
No,
But
they're not.
this movie has continually done that. Hasn't
Yeah.
it? It's
Yes,
thrown out these
it has.
things
It has.
constantly from
Yeah.
right from the start, and so it's intentional. It's not asking you to be in a serious Raiders mood the whole time.
Right.
It's
I like
asking
that
you.
this-
It's asking you to have fun, Jerry.
But there's a clash there. There's a time for
cast,
fun. Even in this movie, there's a time for a lot of there's been a lot of
There are
legitimately funny,
26
fun
seconds
stuff in
for
this movie.
fun in this movie, Neil. You have 26 seconds to enjoy yourself.
No, but it's you don't interrupt a scene like this with something just flatly goofy like that. It's
I disagree. I think it's,
Well,
I
you,
think it's
you
great.
tell Steven Spielberg that, Tom.
Well,
will.
I'll
Get him on the
say
show,
this.
I'll
You know what? You guys are
Oh,
right.
man.
It is consistent with the movie, and I'm the dumbass for
No.
thinking that when I walk back through the door again, the paint isn't going to fall on me. I'm the
Right.
guy who's walking down the street, and it's like, I'm sure there are no more banana peels to slip on. And that's, I'm expecting more from the movie because the movie does do certain things so well, and I get sold back into taking it seriously.
Yeah.
But see, I don't think. I just think
Especially
you're
on
not
the
on board
previous
with.
minute.
You're just not on board. I think with the conceit of the movie.
If this
Like, I
is the
think-
conceit of the movie, then I don't want to like it. Actually, I'm dead serious because they're presenting. This is like the climax of the movie. This is what everybody's
Yeah.
been looking for, and people have been talking the whole time about the Holy Grail, the Cup of Christ, this like possibly not real, possibly unattainable thing that Indiana Jones is about to obtain. And there's a 700-year-old knight here who's sworn an oath to protect it, and he falls and he goes boopity boop boop boop. Why would I want to like a movie like that?
It's really funny. It's wonderful.
It
and
is
it's
if you
funny,
watch it. I
and
love
it's a
Lucy.
fantastic scene. It's beautiful. It's beautifully.
I'm sure
executed.
everyone agrees with you, and Jerry and I are just gonna slink off. And
I hope so. Everybody on Facebook that agrees with me, please lay into these two clowns because we've had a whole movie of this.
If we were
Well, no,
clowns,
and
they'd love it. We'd be squirting water at each other's faces and throwing.
But
buckets of poo
you know
on
what?
each other.
I'm with you on that, Tom, in the sense that if this is the timbre of the movie, which it is, and to their credit, it's consistent, I'm disappointed in that choice then.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Look, all movies are different. They're all different. Temple of Doom did that thing, and it was a departure, which, Pete, I gave you mad props on for saying each movie's different and they took chances on, which is cool. That's a great point. I just don't like, you ever try it, you buy some ice cream and you try a new flavor and you go, "Oh, this sucks." And somebody goes, "Well, good for you. You tried a different flavor." And I go, "Sure. Would you get it again?" Hell no. It's not what I wanted. Now I got to go watch Raiders to cleanse the palate.
But it could be a flavor that is still really good. It's just not your favorite. But you wouldn't want your favorite ice cream every single time, would you?
He would actually.
I would actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kind of.
So why do you try different? Why do you try different milkshakes, Jerry? Why don't you just have your favorite one the whole time?
That's it. Well, I do try and temper that with that. But here's what's interesting. When I do get ice cream and milkshakes, I'm very consistent because those things are 2,000 calories apiece. So if you're going to spend 2,000 calories, it better be damn good. And anyone who knows me knows that if I go to like Dairy Queen or some fake Dairy Queen somewhere and I get like, oh, let me try the Oreo smash peanut butter topping one. And if I take 2 or 3 sips and I don't like it, I throw it away.
Throw it away.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth the 1,500 calories to have a knight fall over backwards at the climax of the movie.
It's like 5 push-ups you don't have to do anymore.
Exactly.
Like 10 episodes of a podcast we don't have to do.
There's like 500 push-ups you don't have to do anymore. So listen, I think it's great because Tommy and I are consistent on this. We do like our movies a certain flavor, and
we're the 2 smartest people we know.
And I'm glad you're here, Neil, because you're there with Pete saying, "Hey, have a little fun,
you for being here, Neil. I'm
loosen up." And it's great. We're going to get into one of those Beat It style dance-offs.
Well, hold on. We've got Mr. West Side Story here.
Oh yeah, talk about dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't think it's funny, Pete. I do think it's funny. I just feel it's inappropriate for, I guess, my flavor of Indiana Jones and how seriously I did take the last few minutes because it was well done and Harrison Ford acts it so well. And that was the previous minute was the scariest, most tense-filled part of the entire movie for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I mean,
maybe you just when you get, it's kind of, imagine this: you're getting a malt, and the first 5 sips are fantastic, and you go, "Geez, this is exactly what I wanted." And then all of a sudden, in that malt, you're like, "Ho, ho, ho! Who put spinach in here? I wasn't ready for this." And and they're like, "Oh no, that's how we did this malt. It's a chocolate spinach maca green tea with lobster bisque." And you're like, "What? And then you get past that and you almost barf, and then you're back to beautiful chocolate malt again."
I think what bugs me about
delicious.
this exact gag is that it feels like, after all the movie is consistently kind of swung, sometimes kind of seasickly between, serious kind of gritty fun and also like kind of goofy fun. So you're sort of expecting that from the movie, but then in this moment, it feels to me like the movie itself is afraid to take itself seriously at all, and it has to throw in a little boopy to boop boop boop. Like at this moment where like, oh my God, Indiana Jones is facing off with a 700-year-old knight who's here to protect the Grail with his life. Oh, but he fell down, so it's cool. It's all right.
But we've got so much serious stuff going on, and I like that this kind of lightens the mood for a second because we had a ton.
Lightened.
We kind of need the tension to be released a little bit, or it's just going to be nonstop.
But it just started. The tension.
No, it's been going on for a while. Like he shot his dad. He's gone through all the different ordeals, and he gets to the night, and it's like, you know what? I need to take a breath, and this is your little breath, and then you'll get back. It'll be pretty bad.
It gets back on track pretty quick.
Yeah,
but then give me a 5-minute breather somewhere else.
Yeah.
This is the big. Okay, how about this? What if I pitched you guys this? Pete, wouldn't you love to see Indiana Jones battle a real knight whose visor was down and he has a 6-foot sword?
Yeah.
And he's like the real deal,
no.
and it's serious?
Problem is, it's 2 good guys.
That's true.
But that's okay. That's even cooler.
Yeah, but they have 2
He doesn't
different
have to kill him.
Yeah.
I
He
also
doesn't have to kill the guy. It's the final challenge.
And this will infuriate Tom too. But like, I really enjoy watching the original Star Trek shows, the original TV show. But I don't like that every single one ends with Kirk in a fist fight with an alien. And I kind of like that Indy didn't have a fist fight here with a knight. You know, he didn't end up having a knockdown, drag him out fight. They went a different direction. It was an unexpected direction. It was something that, you know, you're not expecting. Like, hey, this is something new. I wasn't expecting any of this to happen.
Well, I wonder if that is part of the reason why they made him old and not able to have an honest to goodness fight because they didn't want Indiana Jones to have to kill or wound or defeat somebody who was actually a good guy doing his job.
Yeah.
But still, he doesn't have to fall down and go boop-a-da-boop.
Here's the thing. Wait a minute. How about this? Why don't they just have the knight be solemn? He doesn't have to swing the sword or have this vanquished single, mano combat.
Yeah.
He just can be the knight. And he says, congratulations, you passed the final test. I've been expecting you.
Or he could do like a Cosm and be like, oh, you're here to save your dad? All right, forget it. I've been here for 700 years. I'm good. Here's my sword.
It sounds like
you've got a noble pursuit.
Make fun of on Mystery Science Theater.
What we have here is neither. We have not a battle, and we have no reverence.
Yeah. The movie doesn't have the reference. That's what bugs me.
The movie, yeah.
Maybe in real life the guy would fall down trying to swing that sword like that. But
well, wait a minute. I still don't even know how old is he, and why does he have lumbago?
I'm going to let that go for some reason. I don't know why, but I'm ready to let that go.
Everybody in the movie has misunderstood the Grail, and I think it's possible we've all misunderstood the Grail too, because it never says you won't grow older. It just says you won't die. Those are very different things.
Well, I mean, the silly part is the Grail, giving you everlasting life. Like, Father Mowry was here, and he said, look, guys, you don't need the Grail for that. You show up to church and be a good person, you'll be all right. So, that's the big misunderstanding. But that makes it really silly. If it's like, well, it's kind of supernatural, but it's not that great. It's like, yes, you'll live forever, but by the end, you'll be like a pile of dust, like a sentient pile of dust.
You
don't like ironic...
It's typical of God, though. Something, it's not all good. You get eternal life, but there's a lot of suffering that's going to happen to you at the same time.
So.
You get really old.
God is Rod Serling.
Well, that's why. I like the Twilight Zone episode aspect of it. Like, it is kind of an ironic wish fulfillment thing.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. So let's put a microscope to this. All right, he lives forever, but it doesn't mean he doesn't get old. So. What age is he? Because I'm saying he's like maybe 78.
Yeah.
So did he did he finally get back into that cave when he was 78?
Or maybe
he's not 800.
But he's 78 plus 700. It's the way
but so he should look differently.
No, he's 78 in kind of his body years, but he's 700 in his mind, right?
So explain to me how he ages. Is 100 years 1 year?
Getting solemn. If you ever known someone who later in their life gets old really fast, it seems to be,
Yes.
they seem okay and they seem fine, and he's 80 years old, he's going fine, but then that kind of next 5 years, there's a big kind of drop off and a deterioration. Yeah. I think a lot of the time in my mind, that's a mental thing more than anything. And it's just kind of, I don't know, some people, you see them, they retire from work when they hit 65 or something. And it's just because they haven't got that thing in their world anymore. It's, there's something missing and there's a deterioration. I think, this guy's just wearing the 700 years on his skin, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
Well,
so you're
there's
saying
also
that
there's. Oh, go ahead.
Well, Pete, you were just saying that. Now I'm even more confused.
Well, there's
you're
another
saying
huge
that
possibility
he's choosing, here. He's choosing to guard the Grail, but he doesn't really have to.
Right, and there's another huge possibility that we're all missing. It's quite possible that he was 78 years old when he found the Grail.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
No, I thought
because when the brothers came out, they were also super
that.
old. Remember when the other two brothers left, and they left 700 years ago, and they were super old already.
But see, this still doesn't make sense, because then that would be 1289 or whatever to 1238.
Right.
If it's only 700 years. But the first Crusade was 1095.
No, but the Crusades ended. They were still going on. We'll talk about that in the next minute with the dates, because I've got an issue with the dates. But the Crusades went on until the late 1200s. So
Right. So that's what I still don't understand. So saying that if let's say he didn't age and he just happened to build or get to this little cave when he's 78 and then he's frozen there in time.
right.
His back always hurt. And
Right.
by the time he built this little cave or had everything established, he couldn't pick up his sword anyway.
Right. Because
But then he says, I no longer have the strength.
but he may not
And
have
you're
had
like,
the
it's-
strength 700 years ago. And
Do you
remember, 'cause-
understand the mental gymnastics we have to walk through to get there?
because
That's all I'm
you don't
saying.
have to
I
stop here
agree.
and
That
fight
is
it either.
possible.
But
Yeah, that is possible.
when the Crusades happened, like the Crusades wasn't, a 300-year long war or a 200-year long war. Like the Christians came from Western Europe, and they conquered Jerusalem, and then they actually had a king in Jerusalem, and they had a government there, for like 100 and something years, and so people just lived there. So it's possible that he wasn't fighting the whole time. Like he could have been a knight, and then he could have just a lot of the people that went there. They just stayed there, and they lived there until they died. And he could very well have been one of those people. And while he's living there, he's kind of bored. There's not a lot of fighting going on for a while. And he's like, I'm just going to go explore this canyon. And then he finds the Grail, and all of a sudden, hey, and he's 78
But
years
what
old.
is this? So what does this have to do with Joseph of Arimathea then?
Well, Joseph of Arimathea had the cup the first time. Like I don't know how they found it, but
That's all so what's... Just, you know what? Don't flutter flute me.
Oh boy.
You guys gonna start talking about the radio on the Zeppelin again? 'Cause I'm leaving.
Yeah, no, it's just, wait, that's all. Just don't flood. This is like a bad 6th grade play. That's all. And it's like,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be funny if the night fell over?
Yes,
And,
it
look,
would.
yes, it
and
would.
it is, but it just,
And
look, okay, so
he's got to look old because it's a movie, right? And he's supposed to be
'Cause it's a
700
movie.
years old.
Yeah.
And so it would be weird maybe for the audience if he's like a 45-year-old.
That's a great point.
man.
Yeah.
You're just
See, but I would
expecting an old
expect-
person, right?
But I don't think all you had to do was take him like he's a knight who is guarding the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Like especially if you think of all like the Celtic Grail lore. You're like all that stuff is like, these robust dudes that are
Yeah.
seeking this stuff. It's like a horn of plenty and this symbol of bounty and everlasting abundance.
But it's kind of nice
And
that
life.
you blow off the cobwebs and the dust of time, and this is something that people have forgotten about for 1,000 years, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's something here. Nobody's thought about this guy for hundreds of years. Like he's just been completely forgotten, and it's kind of nice that you go back and it's like, well, maybe he's not what he used to be. Things can change a lot in 1,000 years.
Still doesn't have
swear
to fall
to God.
down.
Yeah. With the,
Seriously,
yeah,
you know
your
what sucks
flutter.
about the falling down? Literally, I can't take him seriously completely after that. He's like in 2 or 3 of the most, tense minutes of the movie, like the climax of the movie, and I can't totally take him seriously after that.
Yeah.
He's a silly little old man with a gray light on him.
So the
And you know what's-
actor Robert Edison that played him, he was a TV and stage actor, and this was the first time he'd ever done a movie. And he was apparently super nervous, and he kept asking
Really?
Spielberg, "Am I doing this right? Am I doing it right?"
Wow.
So I guess if Tom Taylor and Jerry Porter had been there, they'd be like, "No, you are
We
not
gotta
doing
do
this
this
right."
thing. What were we thinking? It's not your fault.
I'm just going to say this, Pete.
Uh,
Look, I think that this is a sinking ship. And nothing can really change my mind. But
No,
I'll
I
say
know
this.
that, yeah.
As we're all going
You're not
down
getting on
the
my door
sinking
either, Jer. Yeah, this is,
As I think, going down in the sinking ship, I swear to God, you're saying, no, Jerry, it's really not that bad. I want you to think of it this way. And you do it beautifully. Like I'm still stubborn, and it's 51%. No, we're all going to die a horrible death on this stupid. My mom was right. We're all going to die dumb. This is stupid, but you argue these things so beautifully. And
well, I
you
appreciate that, and you make
do
it very
try.
hard not to. Love
I know.
You make it very hard to keep loving this movie sometimes.
And
so.
you do bring up
that's our
some
job.
great, you bring up some great jobs. And just to throw you overboard right now, why is this French knight? Why does he have a British accent?
No, why does he even
He's
speak
French.
English? How does he speak?
Yeah.
Nobody would have spoken English at this point. Yeah.
And you could say to me, "Oh no, come on! It's a British night. It's just a British old timey thing." Then just go back to Donovan's office and say it was a British night.
Yeah.
It has no consequence that the knight is from France. That has
Right.
no real part in the story or the movie. It's not important.
Maybe he spent the last 700 years learning every single language on Earth, and he spotted that Indy was American, which he found out existed.
He's got a room,
newspapers and groceries.
He's got a little room in the next thing that's like a wall of TVs.
Yeah,
like from all over the world.
He's Ozymandias. Yeah.
Although you would have been livid, you would have both been irate if he had like a movie French accent. You would have been so angry, so furious.
Again, that's audience expectation, right?
It would have made sense, and so I would have said, okay, so let's just make it a British night.
Yeah, but if he had been an actual French knight with a French accent, you would have. Like, you would have
probably would have
this
cast
podcast.
Peter Sellers or something ridiculous.
Oui.
That's what I'm saying. He'd have like a little mustache.
This one is so heavy.
Hey, zut alors. Sacre bleu.
My sacre is blue.
Zut alors.
Turn into Pepe Le Pew now.
Oh, hey, Jared, you hear those trumpets? Is that trumpets? Is that a fanfare?
Well, I hear him now.
Well,
yeah.
Hey, it's Brian Reilly from Fordham University. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, you're on your way from teaching Renaissance literature and French, I'm guessing.
Yep, even earlier, from about the 11th century on.
Oh, wow.
I have a question for you, Brian. I was thinking about your name. There are no St. Brians?
No, I don't think there are. There's somebody in South America, I think a Jesuit actually in South America, who is on the road to being canonized, but I don't think there's a St. Brian yet.
We'll get there. That seems like I should look up that name. There should be one. There's something sort of, I don't know, Celtic or Welsh about it. Something. Ryan.
Yeah, it's an Irish name. It's totally
yeah,
amazing.
Exactly. I certainly knew a lot of Bryans who kind of wound up at Fordham, Jesuits.
Is there a St. Ryan?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know anything about the Ryans.
Huh.
Oh, do you know how many things I know about the Ryans? I grew up with so many damn Irish Ryans. Could go on for days about those Ryans.
No, well, the Ryans were always a problem. 7 of the 9 guys on my baseball team once were all named Brian or Ryan. It was very confusing.
I'm sure.
Well, Brian, it's very fortuitous we ran into you because right now we're talking about the night in The Last Crusade as Indy's coming into the Knights. They're at the Grail Temple and runs into the Knight. And it struck me right away as perhaps slightly odd that the Knight speaks perfect modern English.
That is odd.
Phew. Thank you.
I've been thinking a lot about this, though. And you have to know that Berlitz existed at the time. So long as the Brotherhood could get him his Berlitz tapes, he probably was able to learn it. And
this is the sort of thing he was putting it on at night before he goes to sleep. Only 15 minutes a day, and you too.
Absolutely, he must have been because if he's a knight of the First Crusade, he's speaking Old French, and in fact, he's speaking pretty much the oldest Old French we have record of. And that's pretty different certainly from English, but it's even very different from modern French.
So would knights who were coming from England also have spoken mainly French still at this point, or would they have been speaking like early English?
Well, if he's a knight of the First Crusade, I'm guessing, maybe he was born in the 1060s, 1070s, maybe he's 20, 30 years old. In which case, if he's going back to France, he's going to be French speaking. Mm-hmm. And even if he's going to England, he's going to be Norman French speaking. Okay. And so I mean, English inherits a lot of that Norman French, but it's still French. It's not. Chaucer's English.
Okay.
So they basically just pulled the card of, oh, we need somebody to sound smart and wise, and so let's get them the old British accent.
Well, I was wondering if it was one of those things where if you watch old films and they're in a foreign country, they speak British English or some such. So maybe Indy and him are speaking Latin. That certainly would have been a possibility.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I've been trying to find a way. But,
Yeah, so have we.
They could have done like at the beginning of Hunt for Red October, where they both start speaking in Latin and it kind of goes, and it turns into English.
Absolutely. Well, and that creates a problem though for the test that gets him there in terms of the name of God, because that's the only thing that I can't work out. Insofar as the name of God for that night would not have begun with either an I or a J, it would have begun with a D. He would have used Dominus. It would have been the Latin, for Lord.
That's interesting. Oh wow!
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
Indy should have fallen through long before.
Well, that's incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that just floored me.
I'm telling you guys,
Yeah,
you guys have inspired. I've been doing some research here.
I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say.
I know. I don't know.
I'm completely lost.
I'm wondering. It's like at first we heard the trumpets. I was happy to run into you. Now I'm kind of shocked.
You're rethinking that.
I'm really thinking that. Well, now, can you talk to us a little bit about the book that's in Donovan's office?
Yeah, this is why I got in touch with you guys, because on one of your shows you were talking about illuminated manuscripts and whether this would make sense or not. And so I did a still of the scene, and it turns out that the book on Donovan's whatever that thing is, the lectern, it's actually called The Death of King Arthur, right? So it's about what happens after the quest for the Holy Grail. And it seems like it's very inappropriate, but actually, I think it works quite well, because the death of Arthur is sort of like the end of the medieval tale of the Grail. So where would you continue the text? You would continue it, you would make notes in that text itself. So that makes sense.
Oh wow!
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean there were a couple of problems with it insofar as like the pages are actually out of order. And then the Grail Knight, apparently the prop has the same page duplicated, but I don't think you actually see what the Grail Knight is reading.
I don't think.
But if you could, it would be this text, "The Death of King Arthur," which is part of a huge piece of literature from the 13th century, which starts with in Joseph of Arimathea and the taking the Holy Grail to Britain. But apparently in the prop, it's the same page written twice. So that again would be a bit of a problem. But, so maybe the knight is sitting there just, trying to learn to read and write very slowly.
Well, I'm still kind of caught up on. So the knights, I always assumed the knight was reading the Bible. So the knight is reading the story of finding the Grail. It's just like he's reliving his greatest hits over and over and over again.
Exactly.
I thought he was too.
Yeah, he's reading one of the pages that's shown in Donovan, and it's actually an episode from it's an episode from the Lancelot Grail, and now I forget what I sent you in terms of the translation. But it's the part he's reading is actually about a woman who's in love with Lancelot, if I remember correctly. So it's not about the Grail at all.
Oh, well, that makes a little more sense if he's been in here for 800 years.
Exactly.
That's him sneaking into the woods and
yeah, he might take off a little of that chainmail. Wow. I kind of want to cut to the chase here. Does the Holy Grail exist?
You've really cut to the chase.
Yeah, I've kind of touched. I mean, because you deal with the medieval literature and that sort of thing, and this. I mean, and it seems to take several different forms, or at least the background is murky and sort of a bastardization of all these different tales. Some
Well, that's what
Celtic
this
and
film does so brilliantly.
yeah,
This film does so brilliantly by having, is it Marcus who says the quest for the Holy Grail is the quest for the divine in all of us?
Right.
yeah.
And then at the end, when Henry is asked what he found, and he says illumination, and then for Indiana, when he calls him when Henry calls him Indiana, and he looks at him face to face, that really is the essence of the Holy Grail. In terms of either the Celtic tradition or the Christian tradition, that it's this thing of plenty, of phenomenal goodness, right? That it's joy and a human connection. The Grail itself, in the text that is in Donovan's office and the text that the knight is reading, that Grail gets taken from England back east to a place called Saras, and from there it actually gets taken back up into heaven. So the Grail itself should be inaccessible. And the medieval author himself even says anybody who says that they've seen the Holy Grail ever since this moment is, lying or a fraud. So that raises a question of, in this film, whether it's actually the Holy Grail or whether it's just another one of these tests. And the Grail is just as Marcus says it is, or just as Henry says it is.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like there's a final test. No, wait, that was just the penultimate test. There's a final test. No, wait a minute, that one doesn't. That was the penultimate test. And so at the end, the Grail is just a test because the actual Grail is up in heaven.
That's what I think. They've really nailed sort of the essence of the Grail, even if they get the pages out of order, or even if they get some of the details wrong. There's a lot of medieval inspiration in this film, and you can find echoes. Actually, I guess it would be the other way around. This film echoes the medieval literature quite well, but I think it really captured that central feature of the Grail as a connection between people, between a community.
Wow. And so if we were to ask a crusader or somebody from the 12th, 13th, 14th century about it, I mean, is that essentially how they would feel about it?
Well,
did they feel that way back then, I guess is what I should say.
Well, so the problem is that they really did have this this love for relics and anything that could be connected. So, when the Mongols start coming out of the east and people start thinking it's the end of the world, there's this rush to get relics back west, which is why I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. The Sainte-Chapelle is built as sort of it's a chapel, but it itself is almost a reliquary for some pieces of the crown of thorns. I think maybe there's a piece of the true cross. And so, would they have believed that there was this Grail to be found? Well, if they believed the literature, they believe it's back in heaven. If they believe, that there are, the possibility of having 1,000 different nails of the cross out there, which shows that they're able to, they show that they can believe anything is a relic. Then maybe they would have been able to believe that it had been found once again.
Wow. And wasn't the whole First Crusade kind of saved by the guy digging in the church and finding part of what he said was the Holy Lance?
Yes, yeah. And even up to the sacking of Constantinople, which plays into the film as well in terms of the Venice Library. The French Crusaders really take any opportunity to either find or invent, create these old relics. So definitely, it was one of the things they were most interested in.
I like that because the Indy is kind of like a modern day French Crusader in this sense. Like he kind of either invents or appropriates different relics that he finds around the world and takes them back to quote unquote safety.
Yeah, there's a nice moment in an otherwise not terribly good film, the Joan of Arc one with Mila with Mila Jovovich, where the holy ointment is found to be empty, and so one of the characters creates a miracle by pouring olive oil into it or something like that. Of course, everybody else is going to believe it, but they understand the power of making fictive objects like that.
What's so fascinating to me is how so much of this stuff is mythical, and then yet so much of it is based on tangible artifacts. You talk about the Grail legend and the Middle Ages and the way people thought. It's like, don't go out in the woods, it's scary. Or the Grail legend, and then at the same time they're collecting, as you said, the relics, and they venerate a finger from John the Baptist or something. I mean, it's just how, I guess in a way, it's so macro perspective and then so micro perspective all at once, thrown
really
together.
As you say, really based on their lived experiences. One of the things I've been trying to track down is the invisible bridge, sort of where Indy takes his leap of faith. And it seems that might have a Celtic origin as well. And it might just be the case. Yeah, it might just be the case that as you're walking across a bridge and sort of a boggy, swampy, or misty area, you sort of can't see the bridge in front of you, and it becomes sort of a dangerous prospect. So, there's a piece of literature that has a lot of connection to the three trials from 12th century England by a woman named Marie de France. And she has a bridge. It's not invisible, but it's one of her challenges through purgatory. And how does the guy overcome? How does he get through it? He invokes the name of God, right? So it almost seems to me that these writers of the film knew this literature somehow. And it could just be they knew the specific sources, or it could just be that they knew, as you were saying, Jerry, they knew this sort of this folk motif. It's sort of all in the air.
Right.
Well, I know when they first started, when George Lucas first had the idea for Last Crusade, there was a research department at Lucasfilm, and he said, like, hey, Janice and Frank, or whoever it was, I want you to give me all the research you can on the Holy Grail or the Fountain of Youth or however he first started it. And they actually went to the library for the next 3 weeks, and they researched everything they could. So it's possible they actually did have some pretty good foundational knowledge before they started this.
Yeah, I'd give them a pretty good grade. I mean, the fact that there were three brothers and only one of them comes out maps perfectly well into that Lancelot Grail text that is, that I said is in Donovan's thing that the guy's reading, because there are three knights that achieve the Grail quest, and only one of them comes back to tell the tale. Again, yes, they did their research, it seems like.
Can you, speaking of doing their research, can you fill us in a little bit on this Chronicles of St. Anselm business?
No.
That just kind of sounds
No.
It's pretty good. I like it.
Awesome.
No,
you got the bridge down, but that's bogus.
I still have a year before I have to teach the class, so I'll do some more research.
Yeah. Has there been was there like an explosion of people wanting to study medieval literature ever since the Da Vinci Code and that whole thing, like 15 years ago?
I think there's been another resurgence thanks to Game of Thrones. And talk about somebody who knows his medieval history, George R. R. Martin. Everything is an illusion. Everything.
Wow.
In fact, I should send you, in terms of the Dominus thing, that the name of God in Latin would begin with a D. There's a beautiful manuscript you can see online from the Kingdom of Jerusalem. So something that this Crusader knight would have been familiar with. And it's called the Melisande Psalter. And Melisande strikes me as something that George R. R. Martin was doing with that character Melisandre. I mean, he takes all the names, even the events of his books from medieval literature and from medieval history. It's truly amazing.
Wow.
That God, that bothers me so much. That Jehovah because they try to get around it. They try to go, no, we're really smart. We're out ahead of you. We outsmarted you.
Well, let me even further your trouble there, because what Indy steps on when he steps on the J, in a medieval manuscript, that was more like a T. That was a T with a little flourish. That wasn't a J. Yeah, that IJ distinction would have been later. That's not something a Crusader knight would have been doing.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Brian. This was awesome. This is I feel enlightened.
Illuminated,
absolutely.
Perhaps, but...
Yeah, illuminated. Yeah,
that's great.
All right. Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. I look forward to sending you the link. Some of these manuscripts are online, and they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, we would love to post those. And do you have any place you'd like any of our listeners to go check out, or any place you'd like them to see you or anything?
I'm not really out there. If people have trouble sleeping, I've got a book coming out in about a year, but that's about it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, what's the book?
Yeah.
The book is actually, half of it's on the Lancelot Grail cycle. It's on the Merlin part of it. It's a book called Getting the Blues. It's going to be about color in Old French literature.
Oh,
wow.
That sounds cool. Getting the Blues. Well, we'll definitely post a link to that at some point. When we're knee deep in Crystal Skull, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether I'm going to be listening to that, but you've got me. I'm going back and I'm listening to the Temple of Doom, which never did it for me. But you guys are making some good points and making me appreciate the film a little bit better. I'm just thrilled that I found you for this one, which is such a great film.
Oh, we are too.
Yeah, and thank you for reaching out. This is
yeah.
great.
And if you do find, we're going to be doing the fourth one. If you find something that you'd like to jump in about, please don't hesitate to let us know.
The only thing I can tell you about the fourth one is I was at Yale when they were filming it, and when he drives his motorcycle into the library, he actually winds up in the cafeteria. That's about all I know about the film.
Jeez.
Well, that's where we all would like to end up, I think, at some point anyway.
Yeah. Well, and we do have a listeners' crusade.
Yeah, I'm there, and in fact, Saint Vitus, or whatever his name is, Saint Vitus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Vitus.
He came up the other day because it's the 500th anniversary of his big plague in Strasbourg. Strasbourg, France, where people started dancing, and they kept dancing until they died.
Yeah, the Saint Vitus dance. Yeah,
Saint Vitus. That's right.
Well, awesome. It's good to run into you. And Jerry, I guess we should dance our way back into this episode.
That's what we're doing. Here I go. Wait. Here I go. This hurts.
So what's this look of recognition that the knight gives Indy?
I have no idea, Peter. Why don't you try and bail us out of this sinking ship?
Oh, you don't like this either? I think this is an interesting question. Like, does Indy have the mark of Yahweh, or does he know that he's a good guy, or why he seems to look at him like he recognizes something good in him?
Yeah, no, he gazes at Indy like he always knew Indiana Jones would come, not someone, but Indy. And
I
he's
knew
kind of
you'd
one of
come
those,
walking through these
my
doors,
boy.
Indiana
Yeah, and
Jones.
see, check. It's like this predestined vibe, and that's not an everyman like Jonathan Rinsler was saying. That's not an everyman. That's I'm sorry, but that encroaches upon midichlorian territory for me. Like, see, Indiana Jones he's a knight now?
I had never considered this, what you guys are talking about, that he's recognizing Indiana Jones. I always thought he was just like, he just attacked like somebody came into his cave, he attacked him, and now he's like taking a breath and being like, wow, somebody actually finally showed up. Somebody's here.
And that's
like,
what
this is what I was here
for,
waiting for.
And that look,
but not that Indiana Jones is here.
Yeah, no, I don't think it means that he recognizes Indy himself, but I think it seems like he recognizes something about him. Like there's something valiant about him, or there's something courageous, or something good about him. Like he seems like he sees something in his face that says this guy's all right.
He's very handsome.
Yeah.
You know what? I think they take it one too far. He gives him this. He has this like avuncular pleasantness to him, and I don't understand. He swings the sword, he misses, he falls down, and then he goes, "Oh my boy," and you're kind of like, "Dude, what's going on?"
I wish he
And
did say,
I-
"Oh my boy." That'd be like a callback to Jabba in that deleted scene from Star Wars.
Oh, my boogie.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
boogie
just,
boy.
I agree. He sees something, but it looks like he's not like, oh, this is the guy. And then vanquished. What?
It's
Yeah.
figurative.
Well, that's the next minute, isn't it?
Yeah. I just, he, it's a little
Stay in your
too,
lane.
like, I get that he's expecting someone.
There's a few other lovely wordless exchanges, and they're brilliantly done. It's just subtle little looks between the characters.
Yeah.
You know, when Elsa turns to pick the cup, and you know, it cuts to Indy in the night, and it's a nice angle. The knight's kind of sitting down there and it's looking up at Indy, and the camera's looking up, and you know, she goes to pick up this cup, and the knight just looks around and turns to Indy, doesn't say anything, totally deadpan.
Yeah,
Indy
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of does the side eye and looks back, and they know. I mean, she's straight up murdering Donovan here, right?
Yeah.
There's no question, is there?
Somebody on the Listeners Crusade was questioning that a long time ago, and no one else understood what he was talking about. That it was plainly obvious that she's definitely intentionally picking the wrong thing for him and killing him.
I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And when we get there, there's I think a lot of evidence to back that up.
Yeah.
Well, she
That's a whole other fight.
she basically picks up the first one she sees, right? I mean, but then that begs the question: does she know that it's not the real one? Does
Yes.
she know which one the real one is?
Yeah. Because she'll say right after that what the real one
Okay,
is.
then I mean, I don't know. I'm glad I got one gag in this minute, but I'm glad they're not all like winking at each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Right,
It's
right.
nicely. This is them getting back to being subtle. And,
Yeah. I like that.
No, that's beautiful.
I mean, if the knight wanted to like have a little stamp on his desk just as a nice callback, that'd be okay with me too. But
That'd be awesome. Yeah. So fun.
just elbows Indy in the ribs. Just got him, Indy. Just got him.
And Donovan dissolves, and he looks at the stamp like, "Did I just kill that man with my stamp?"
well, on that note, anybody have anything else for minute 110?
Why, yes. There is something.
Is there something that might bring
coming.
some peace and harmony back to this show?
Doesn't always.
There is
true,
some,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
gonna make it
true.
worse.
It's true. It doesn't always. We'll have to wait and see what happens when we cross that. You know, by the way, so we had the leap of lion on, the leaping from the lion on the one side. What was on the other side? Like the arriving aardvark,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
finishing ferret.
Hey,
You're
nice
an
to
anteater.
see you.
Yeah, it's just when you show up. Nice
Welcome
to
to the
see
other
ya.
side. Here's your collector's cup. The knight's waiting for you.
Can I take your coat, sir?
This is in from Professor Christy Porter. Has Indy been a knight this whole time? Does the knight expect Indy to stay 700 years?
I think the knight does expect Indy
He
to
does.
stay 700 years.
For sure.
Yeah.
So is Indy the last?
Well, no, I think this could just go on for eternity, as far as the knight's concerned. But like I said, I still think the knight made this all up.
It's okay.
That's why the knight is happy to see him. But, that's why he gives him the kind of benefit of the doubt. It's like, oh, you're a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
That look who you're talking about, right? He's just
Right,
glad
yeah,
someone's
yeah,
turned
yeah.
up.
Sign
It's
here, and I'll be
I
on
could
my
go.
way.
Yeah.
like, it must be
this
getting back. The wife will be livid.
What Pete? What I love about your like Rube Goldberg contraptions to make the movie come together and work. So if the knight is all making this up, I can, I'd say, you know what, Pete? All right, let me stand and start bailing out this sinking ship, and I think we'll make it. You know, kind of like, what day is today? It's Wednesday? No, it's Tuesday. We're going to make it. But I'm going, what the hell do I do with the whole rest of the movie?
Well,
if the
I don't
Knight's
understand
just
those are
making
mutually
this
exclusive.
up.
I mean, the Knight made up this reason for him to stay here. He's kind of like, he took
But
it
then
upon
I say,
himself
so-
to be the savior of
So,
the Grail.
but then there's nothing at all spiritual.
Well, there is in
or
his mind.
But then, like, God has nothing to do with the Holy Grail at all in this movie.
Well,
and
yeah,
then
he
I'd
still
say,
could.
so
It
it
might be
can't
the
really
idea.
save. It can't, but then it can't really save Indy's dad.
No, I mean, God could
That's
still
true.
have, like, he could have given the Grail power, and he could say, well, this was actually a pretty good idea this Knight had. Yeah, he can keep guarding it for me or whatever. But it doesn't necessarily mean when God created the Grail, you know, when someone made the Grail and God gave it power with the Last Supper, that he said, I will set a Knight upon the, you know, in front of this Grail for 1,000 years.
Right.
Like, I think
Like
the
he
Knight
probably
just
also
came
didn't
along.
hire
and-
the cruciform sword guys either. Like they took it
Yeah.
upon themselves.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
guard it
yeah.
and everything.
So none of this was okay. So none of this was really God's plan. Like,
No, I
he
don't think the
left-
traps
he
were. I don't
left
think
the-
this guy
like
was.
God has a plan. Holy.
So he leaves the Last Supper ends. Joseph of Arimathea steals the cutlery and the silverware.
Yeah.
And
And
God's like, oh, whatever. I mean, there's some magic cups I left down there. You know, it's cool. I'll imbue them with special powers, but whatever happens is cool.
Sure.
I mean, it's not my Garden of Eden.
What's interesting is there's zero mention of this whole interaction with the Knight in any of Henry's stuff. Henry mentions
Yeah.
like the three
Yeah.
the three booby traps, but there's like, oh, and then you have to fight a Knight at the end. Like, so it does
Yeah.
sort of seem like the Knight is sort of on his own track.
And fighting the Knight is the penultimate challenge.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like there's actually, from what I remember, like 5 challenges then, right?
Yeah.
Wait, no, what do you mean?
Some-
I'm lost.
But see, that's why.
There's
That-
some booby traps. There's mano combat with the 700-year-old knight, and then there's
and
picking
then-
the Grail.
All right,
you got to find the place as well.
yeah,
First up, right?
that's true.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
find it. So
and you have
But
to have
like-
your dad kidnapped first so you care.
well, I was wondering
And
also.
then I feel like the final challenge is you get to sit there and go like, "Are you serious? This is what they're doing?
well,
Are you serious? I have to accept this."
I was wondering also because Petra. I've not been to Petra, but it looks very impressive, and I'm sure it's kind of magnificent when you see it. It's not small, okay? It's quite a big thing. And are we to think that in 1938 this has been undiscovered by anyone else? It's just sitting there in the side of this rock face in the desert.
Well, there was a deleted scene where this temple was supposed to be located in a canyon, a very, very, very narrow canyon that had the entrance blocked off. And there's a scene a few minutes ago where the Nazis blow up the entrance to the canyon so they can actually get into the canyon to see the temple. So that's why it had never been discovered.
That would make more sense because it didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard for them to find it,
Right.
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 and if you'd think that if this was something that people knew about, and there's this giant thing sculpted in this rock face, and when you try and go in there, God kills you. you think that would have been on the Joneses' radar, wouldn't you? Should we go check this out, Dad?
Yeah, that sounds neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like,
But see, now the problem I have is now it's not God killing you.
Why is that a problem?
That's just another example of people like the Knight and the Cruciform Sword brothers taking it upon themselves to protect the Grail, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that
Which is
actually
sort of
makes it a
noble. I
more
mean, that's kind of a
interesting.
nice
I think
thing.
that makes it a more interesting movie. That it adds a layer of
But
complexity.
then I don't know where to put my Yahweh here.
Well, your Yahweh put the power in the Grail in the first place.
Yeah.
Just like with the Ark, he left the Ark and he gave some instructions with it, kind of like over on Neil's other podcast. He leaves some instructions with the Mogwai, and if people follow them or they don't follow them, and with the Ark they obviously did not follow them. And with this one guy decided, you know what, I'm going to try to follow some of these rules pretty scrupulously, and I'm going to build a whole temple around it and make sure no one does the wrong thing with it.
Okay, so hang on, Pete.
Yeah.
Again,
This is
do a
the
great
radio all
job.
over. Listeners, I'm sorry.
No, you do a great job defending all this stuff, but do you really think this is what the directors in the movie wants us to get from it, that the knight is just crazy and he takes it upon himself to do this. It's his duty.
Well, that doesn't make him crazy.
Yeah,
Not crazy,
yeah.
but that's really what the story is.
I think that's an equally valid interpretation. And I don't know.
I think it's
mean,
another one of the aspects that zips along so fast that it all kind of makes sense. And it's, at night he's working for God. He's got his thing,
Yeah.
Well, of course. But that's not what we signed up for.
No, that's
That would
true.
just be watching the movie regularly.
Yeah. Who would do that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to leave it there, I think, for minute 110. And
Please.
we've just mentioned Mogwais, and Neil, you host one of my very favorite podcasts,
Thank you.
the Mogwai Minute. Maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit more about that.
Thanks. Yeah, my co-host George and I, who's a previous guest on the show as well.
Yeah.
We host the Mogwai Minute. We basically just do the same thing you guys do, but for the movie Gremlins, and we wrapped up the Gremlins. The Gremlins. We've wrapped up on Gremlins. I couldn't even get the name of the movie right. And we've just started recording on Gremlins 2, the new batch. So that'll be coming out.
Excellent.
Oh, that's
Oh,
awesome.
nice.
At some point in the future.
Awesome. And I've never seen Gremlins 2. I'm kind of curious.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, you might love it.
Very
Yeah,
good.
I,
haven't
hope so.
seen
I love Gremlins. Gremlins 1 has always been one of my favorites. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm curious what Jerry will think of it. I'm actually not that curious. I know what
I
Jerry
haven't
will think
seen
of
it.
I don't need to
I
see it.
haven't
I can
seen
tell
it.
you what Jerry's going to think of it.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, definitely check out the Mogwai Minute. It's a great show. And check us out back here on Monday for minute 111 of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Oh, my aching incontinence. Oh, ooh, I tell you, these corns.